heard me harp on about imports and the import products. And I've said to you in the past that if you get one import, the revenue from one import can equal how many export shipments? 7 export shipments. So you want to make sure that you do, and you are always looking for those imports because they put a lot of revenue, a lot of bucks. So what I want to take you through is right now, why should you sell imports more than at any other time? I'm going to take you through how does the import clearance work, and refresh your knowledge on that. And then we're going to look at some new tools that have come out. So I don't know how many of you have seen on the DHL website that we have clearance on demand. So I want to make sure you have this knowledge, that either you use this knowledge for your customers or you tell your customers where it is so that they can actually have the tools at their fingertips to give us information on their all-important imports. We'll refresh your knowledge on the tools of InXpress online. Make sure that you're all aware of trade automation, and make sure that, yes, if you do forget and you only remember maybe 10% of what I'm saying, that you know where to go to get the information, which is all contained within a guide. I'm going to make you sit here until I tell you the competition details, being the cruel person that I am, so that I have your engagement. And then you Canadians, you Australians, you UK folks, you can go back and you can say, this is what the US is doing. What are you going to sort of like come to the table with, and can we get involved in more of this import competition? The other thing I might touch on, and I might get sort of like, I mean, obviously, I always have JCID's help here, but we'll also talk about the blogs that DHL has recently launched, so that you know that as a source of information, so that you've got things at your fingertips that you can always be talking to your customers about, so that when you go to them, there's always something new and interesting, so that you can talk about global trade, and sound knowledgeable about global trade. And at the end of the day, we will push you this information and show you where to get it. So, Import Express. We know there's a lovely thing out there called Incoterms, and I'm not going to go through Incoterms as such. They're the International Commercial Terms of Trade. And the International Commercial Term of Trade, which covers Import Express, is Ex Works. If you ever have a customer that mentions that they do Ex Works, you rub those hands together because you're like, okay, I have got a winner here because I can sell them Import Express. Ex Works, that jargon equals money, opportunity equals Import Express revenue for you guys. So when we define what is Ex Works purely and simply is we have a buyer here in the United States and they want to pay for everything. They want to pay for the shipment to be picked up from its origin, be it sort of like in Germany, be it in Canada, be it in the UK, be it over in Oz. They want it picked up, and they are going to pay for the transportation to their country, and they are also going to pay for the duties and taxes. Now, normally, the buyer might negotiate and they might say, okay, it's up to the seller to pay for that. But with Ex Works, it's purely and simply that the buyer is paying for all of those costs. Ultimately, that buyer wants full control. If they know that they are paying for the goods, the transportation of the goods, then they get to choose who moves those goods. They get to choose how quickly it gets to them. So they have full control. They get to negotiate in their country how much it's going to cost them and lock in the prices for a year. Whereas if they leave it to their supplier, the price of the shipment or the freight of the shipment might vary. If you've got companies, everyone has a budget to keep to. They want to understand what their shipping costs are up front so that they can manage that budget. When we look at Import Express and why we should be focusing on it, 40% of world transportation is Ex Works. That means the buyer is paying for the transportation. I know that sort of like I get feedback that obviously you knock on doors, and the customer says, No, we don't have to pay for it. You know, the actual seller pays for it. Go and knock on another bleeding door. Yes, because we know that 40% of world transportation is ex-works. Obviously, there might be different decision makers that you need to talk to, but the business is out there. And if it equals 7 times more revenue than exports, then it's something that you should be motivated to find. Why am I really concentrating on this right now? We know that the dollar is very strong. Does that make us more of an exporting or importing country here in the United States? All right, so how many of you say it's exporting if the dollar's strong? How many of you say it's importing if the dollar's strong? Okay, great. So it will be importing. So you have to be aware of what's happening sort of like in world trade. You have to be aware of where your opportunities are now to be able to take advantage of them. When we look at sort of like what's the advantages that you've got when it comes to selling imports, what's the knowledge that you need to have? You obviously have to have the knowledge about DHL and how we do the clearance. You know, ultimately, where we clear through is we've got the majority of our goods are either going to be coming in via Cincinnati. How many of you have been to Cincinnati? Fantastic. Those of you that haven't, I think I'm due to go out there in April, so you can join me and we can have a nice tour. So we've got Cincinnati, we've got Miami, we've got JFK, we've got Los Angeles. I've told you shortly we're going to be having Chicago, then we're going to be having another gateway in Dallas. So we've got the clearance capabilities. We have dedicated customs desks around the world to help us with the brokerage. And I'll go sort of like more into customs brokers. But our customs brokers, are they under our control, under DHL's control? Why are they under DHL's control? Who's going to be brave out there and tell me the answer? Okay, they work for DHL. Yeah, so the customs brokers, they're actually DHL employees. And we'll go into sort of like what the role of a customs broker is. Do we have customs on site at DHL gateways? We do. So customs actually sort of like work out of our gateways. If they, obviously when you see customs, a lot of the times you see them with dogs. Yeah, and they're sort of like sniffing all the packages, making sure that there's no bombs, there's no drugs or anything like that. We even have exercise yards for the dogs. We even have dog showers, you know, so that we make sure that customs has everything that they need to feel comfortable in our gateways. And, you know, that sort of like the dogs are obviously well looked after. That's close to my heart because I'm a bit of a dog lover. That they have everything at their fingertips. And obviously what that means to DHL, what that means to your customer, is if there's a shipment that customs has to look at, they just have to toddle off down one of DHL's couriers' corridors to be able to check that shipment. We have 99% of the shipments that are going to come into the United States are already going to be cleared by the time that plane touches down. So we unload them, we scan them, and it gives us a beep back that says it's green and it's good to go. It's only 1% of shipments that we actually have to do some more work on. We're able to have the information at our fingertips to be able to plug it straight in the computer, so it's already with customs. All the information is collated, cleared by the time the flight touches down. So let's just go into some of the mechanics of customs clearance so I can remind those that sort of like might need that little bit of a refresher. What is a customs broker? Customs will not just work with anyone. They say that sort of like if they are going to work with anyone, it should be a person that is licensed, that has gone through an exam that is harder than the bar exam. So I would compare a customs broker to a lawyer. Yes, when you go in front of that judge, you're going to bring a lawyer with you, and that lawyer is going to put your case to the judge of why you shouldn't end up behind bars. A customs broker is going to put that case to customs why that shipment should come into the country. And with DHL, because it needs to be someone that's licensed, it almost needs to be an outside authority. DHL's like, well, what do we do? You know, our shipments are coming in throughout the night. We don't want to have to go outside to get this cleared to work with these customs brokers. So with DHL, we've actually got our own employees that we've got certified that has passed this exam, which is harder than the bar exam, so they can actually do the clearance for us, put the case to customs so that we don't slow down the clearance of the shipment. Now, you'll find that, so like if you compare this to other companies, if you compare this to most freight forwarders, they don't have in-house customs brokers. They actually have to go to people. You can look them up, sort of like Google them, as in who's a customs broker, who's licensed. They will have to actually outsource that, which can slow it down. Now, not only do we have customs brokers, but we have these very important import agents that are managing the clearance. And we've got 150 plus, and this is in the US, certified customs specialized. You've got almost like these paralegals that are putting all the information together, making sure they know everything. So if the customs broker doesn't even have to get involved, but the customs broker is there if there's more information that needs to be gained to get that shipment and the information to customs, so customs will allow us to clear it. These are all the things that you've got to be thinking of when you're speaking to your customers in why should a customer want to do importing with DHL? What are the things that differentiates us? Our expertise when it comes to customs clearance. You saw that, so like one of the biggest customers that I put up on the slide earlier was Honeywell, General Electrics. Their customs clearance is pretty complex. You know, that they trust us to sort of like organize that for them with the types of goods that they're bringing in. I think that's testament to the expertise that we've got when it comes to clearance. Now, not only do we just clear that shipment, when we're clearing that shipment, we create a file on the importer. And that happens be it in Canada, to my UK colleagues or to my Australian colleagues. Clearance works exactly the same in all countries. So once we do one clearance on an importer, we've got a file on them, yeah? And we keep that file. And it means that, you know, sometimes when we create that file, we might need to get information from the customer, we might need to phone them, but then once we've got that information, we don't lose it, it's there. So the next time they import, we just look up this file and we say, oh, we've got you, we know how you like to do your clearance, we've got all the facts on you, we've got your employment identification number, we've got your social security number, we've got your VAT number, be it in the UK, it would probably be in Canada, is it your GST numbers? Your business numbers? Where's my import Canada's? What do you use on imports in Canada? Is it your business number or your GST? GST, okay. We've got all of that information for the importer of record. As I've mentioned, in the majority of gateways, we have got customs on site, and you know that's vital when you go overseas. So if anything's being cleared overseas, then we're not handing that shipment off. That shipment, it's a closed loop. We've got the control of that shipment. So the customer has got the security of thinking that their shipment's not being handed off to customs. If customs wants to come and see the shipment, then as I said, they're going to toddle off down that corridor and be able to see that shipment. Our expertise with customs is, I mean, when you look at the different countries, we've really got a partnership with customs. If you think of who's customs' biggest customer, it will be DHL due to the amount of shipments that we've got coming into that country. And if customs, you saw on that video earlier, if customs bring up and they try and stop trade or, you know, there's different things, then sort of like we've got all the lobbyists out there. You know, we've got a guy that's sort of like based in Washington, that's what lobbying as in reference trade. So we're in the know as in what's happening when it comes to trade and what's going to work out. DHL was big in making sure that the de minimis in the United States was increased to $800, which obviously works out better for your consumers that now sort of like get duty-free shipments for shipments less than $800. So let's talk about that de minimis. Every country has a de minimis, but it just ranges. And obviously customs are there to make money. They're there to safeguard the country. They're there to safeguard the economy. They're there to make sure that no dodgy drugs come into the country. But if we concentrate on them making money, the de minimis in the United States, as I mentioned, is $800. That means you can bring in general commodities. If it's $0 to $800, there is going to be no duty. It also means that we can do the clearance on a consolidated manifest. We list everything that's on the plane. We list everything that's from $0 to $800, and it flies through customs. We don't have anything stopped. We don't have anything looked at. If you go to a country like Venezuela or other countries, their de minimis, I mean, some de minimis might be as low as $0 to $20. Does anyone know where you can find the de minimis of any country? The courier guide, the service guide? Okay, so you have got a copy of the service guide. Obviously, get those copies from your service centers, but there is also a PDF copy on the reseller website that you all have access to, so you can find out what the de minimis is in any country. Now, you might well have a licensed good. You might have alcohol and tobacco coming into the country, and maybe sort of like they're less than $800. Do you think customs is going to want to have a closer look at them? Yes, so there's going to be certain products, it doesn't matter what the value of the goods are, they're still going to have to be looked at by customs, and they won't be able to clear on this consolidated manifest. And those restrictions may apply to your partner government agencies, as I mentioned, licensed goods, and good old tobacco and alcohol. Now, when we get above that 0 to 800, that's when your customers are going to have to start paying duty. Over here in the United States, we have duty only. In other countries, we also have a duty and value-added tax, or duty and the goods and services tax. But when it gets above $801 to $2,500, we're still going to be able to do clearance very fast. We're not going to have any problem with clearance. It's going to go through on an informal manifest clearance. It's going to be cleared under DHL's bond. The customs requires everyone to have bonds in the respect of if they want to come and get more money back off you because maybe you've not paid enough duty, then they can do that. So DHL has a bond with customs, and we give the privilege to our customers. We say, you can use our bond. And you don't need to pay for a bond yourselves because we're going to let you use our bond. Obviously, those shipments, to be able to use our bond, have to be cleared under DHL's name. So we will be the shipper and we will be the importer of record of those shipments, and the customers get to use our bond. And obviously, if it's restrictions are also going to apply, as in customs might want to take a closer look at those shipments. Again, if you've got your licensed goods, if you've got your alcohol and tobacco, but American goods returned, no worries, they can come in. General commodities, no worries, they can come in from your $801 to $2,500 and clear very quickly. So we've gone from the de minimis, we've gone up to the informal entry, and now we're going to go on to what classifies as formal clearance. And the reason I'm taking you through this is I don't feel that you need to be experts on clearance, but you need to know what's going to clear customs straight away and have some of this knowledge, because you're going to be in front of customers that are going to want to know this. And if you don't have that information at your fingertips or don't have that base understanding, you can't really sell yourselves as the experts when it comes to international shipping. So on formal clearance, what would we say classifies as formal clearance? You got it. When the goods go above $2,500, it's then going to be classified as formal. When it gets to formal, yes, they're still going to be paying duty, but then you also get what kicks in here in the United States is a merchandising processing fee, and that's a customs fee. So you got your duty, your merchandising processing fee, and then there's more information that we need to get from that customer. We get it once, and then we've got it. But if we haven't got this information, then we need to reach out to the customer. We've got to get proof of EIN. So we've got that figure, 2,500 to 100,000. So what happens once we get above that 100,000? Well, when we get above that 100,000, it's still going to go formal clearance. It's still going to clear the same way. But now we've said, I mean, it's going to get its duty, it's going to get its merchandising processing fee. But now we say, listen, we're not going to clear it under our name now because the value is getting a little bit pricey, a little bit up there. So now we're going to ask the customer that you need to clear it under your name because it's greater than 100,000. And that's when we would ask the customer, we want a power of attorney. Because it's under your name, unfortunately, you don't get to use our bond any longer. You know, we're not going to give that to you for free of charge. So you're going to have to reach out to customs and you're going to have to get your own bond. And when we look at those bonds, there's two types of bonds. There's either a bond that you can just bring in for a one-off, to clear a shipment one-off, just clear that shipment. Alternatively, it could be that the customer purchases a continuous entry bond, and then that will allow them to clear a mass number of shipments into the United States. So a comparison on this for our UK colleagues might be a little bit like the deferment account. There are other items that we will say, we're not going to clear it under our bond, we're not going to clear it under our name, DHL's name. And again, when it's over 100,000, you then also have other things that kick in. That's when you're alcohol and tobacco. It's got to be cleared under their name. If it's American goods returned over 10,000, we say to the customer, has to be cleared under your name. It's no biggie, but what I want to make sure is you don't have to ask every single customer that's importing into the United States for a power of attorney. Because if you do that, then we've got them down as the importer of record, which means they can't benefit from getting a bond, as in using our bond. You will find that sort of like, and this is another competitive advantage, keep seeing this additional fee for $40 on every clearance. That should be a red flag for you. You should be thinking, well, you know, let me have a look at that invoice, because probably what they're charging you for is a single transaction bond. And if you imported with DHL, we can clear it under your bond as long as you're not sending or importing alcohol and tobacco, as long as it's not over 100,000. 9 times out of 10, it's not going to fit into those parameters. That's really all I wanted to talk about on the informal clearance, the de minimis, and the formal clearance. I wanted to make sure you had that in your minds. The other thing, when we go on to speak about clearance on demand, is we've now, how many of you have gone to DHL's website? All right, so it's good that I'm going to spend a few minutes going over this. On the DHL website, we've got a dedicated place, and I'll make sure that the link is circulated out to you, but even if you just to go on the DHL website and search under clearance on demand, the first place it'll bring you into is it will say, okay, to do clearance, these might be the types of forms that you might need. So it gives you sort of like all of the different forms that customer might need to do the clearance into the United States. My Canadians, my UK colleagues, and my Australian colleagues, you might have something similar to this. Obviously, you're not as brilliant as the United States, so you might not have. But, you know, one of those things. We've got it. On here, your customers can go on, they can find all the importing forms that they need, they can download them. And then more importantly, what they can do is, if they've got any problems, or if you've got any problems, if you want to speak to customers, we're now giving them the different portals to reach US customs specialized guys. So either they can speak to a live customs compliance specialist, are available, phone up that phone number. They can chat with a customs compliance specialist online directly. Or sort of like they can send through a message and say, listen, I'm not available right now, but I want you to call me back on my number at this time so that I can speak to you and I can deal with the clearance of my shipment. The other thing that we've put on this portal is, if the customer says, listen, we don't want you to use your brokers, your experts to do the clearance. Then via online, they can go through and they can give us the broker authorization. They can say, this is who our broker is, and this is who we want to do the clearance. Clearance is done on the commodity, so it's very important to understand what the commodity is, because that commodity, based on what it is, what harmonized tariff code that we apply against it, there's going to be different customs duty costs. You might even find that there might be a product where it doesn't get charged any duty due to the commodity. Let's say, for example, if it was a prosthetic leg that was coming into the United States. Yes, obviously customs will look at it closely, but that item has a harmonized commodity tariff code that says there's going to be no duty charged on it. So if the customer has specific codes that they want us to use, which are going to give them maybe duty relief, then they can upload those codes to us so that whenever we do clearance, we make sure it's done correctly. If they need the clearance done under their name and they want to apply for a bond, we will help them with it. So we'll say, okay, here's how you do it. This is where you get a bond so that you can save yourself some money rather than it always going against a single entry bond. Also on this website, if they want to give us more details and update their client master file, we can send them a screenshot. They can request and say, what have you got on file for us right now? And we can send back and sort of like say, okay, here's the screenshot, this is the information we've got, this is who we phone up when we need to do clearance. So they can give us this information via updating the client master file. If they come through and say, okay, we need to do a correction, maybe sort of like it's, you've got a goods that's come in and we want to let you know that it should go under this harmonized tariff code. Then they can send through their import entry correction via this website. Ultimately, we're putting the control back to the customer, we're putting the control back to you guys as salespeople. So this is a tool that you guys can use for your customers. You can get the information from your customers and then you can plug it into this tool. In the past, what we've asked you to do is we've said, okay, create client master files when you open an InXpress account so that first shipment into the United States is not held up by us phoning up and saying, oh, we need your proof of EIN, or we need this, or we need that, or what's the harmonized commodity tariff code this should be cleared under. You can create your client master file up front via this easy tool. You can show that you are the differentiator in that you have this knowledge and you have this tool to go to that makes it easy for you to get this information from a customer. The other tools that we give you or that your importers have access to is InXpress Online. InXpress Online, maybe the supplier is saying, well, maybe they spoke very good English when the buyer was negotiating the cost of the jeans or the fabric that they were going to bring into the country. But now they've gone back to that supplier and they've said, we want you to use DHL. And now the supplier is saying, don't really speak your language very well, don't really know what you're saying to me, and I don't really want to know what you're saying to me because I was making a markup and I was making a nice tidy amount of margin by actually doing the shipment of your goods. Well, with InXpress Online, the buyer can send them an email in their language that basically says, okay, we now want you to do the shipments via DHL. It will bring them to a certain login page so they don't get to see the account number. They can create the airway bill and all the details of that is already there, and they can arrange the booking. So it makes it speedy, it keeps the account numbers secure, and it's a way to actually for the buyer to tell the supplier, you got to move, you got to sort of like send this via DHL. The buyer then has access to know exactly what the supplier's done once they've clicked onto this portal. Once they've sent for a courier, they get the airway bill number so they can then track and trace it, so they have more control, they have more visibility of their shipment. Because let's say, for example, they want to know the day it's going to arrive so that they can get more staff in their warehouse rather than just having staff sitting around because they're not quite sure when the shipment's going to arrive. So this puts the control back into the buyer's hands. So we've got InXpress Online, we've got clearance on demand. We've also got the trade automation service. Now, all of you should be aware of the trade automation service. Put your hands up if you are. All right, great. And this can be very important for customers that are going global and selling via our e-commerce tools, because a lot of the times they want to bake in the cost of the duty that the recipient might well experience into the cost of their goods, so that when the recipient comes to their website, what they're seeing is the final product with the duty, taxes all encompassed. So this tool will allow them to figure that out. It also has got it's got a lot of documents on there that sort of like makes or educates the buyers and the sellers in reference trade documents, and they can also make sure that they're not dealing with any dodgy people, as in it does a restricted party screening. Every single shipment that leaves the United States travels globally. We check every single shipment and we make sure it's not going to a denied party. We make sure it's not going to any of these terrorists. We do all of those checks. But again, it's up to a company to also make sure who they're doing business with, and this tool will allow them to do that. I would counsel you guys, don't ever look up the duties and taxes for your customer. Have them do it, because they know the product that they're actually going to be shipping. So sometimes if you come back and you say, okay, these are going to be the duty charges, it might well be because you've entered the wrong product in there. You want to make sure that the customer is responsible for that, so they don't come back and say, well, you're on the hook because you told me this is what the cost of it was going to be. It all comes down to them putting the right harmonized commodity tariff code in there. The other tool that I've got is the US Customs Industry Guide. How many of you have downloaded that from the DHL website or from the reseller site? Can you all write down that you are going to download it, please? Thank you very much. Homework, things to do once you leave. The US Customs Industry Guide, I mean, you're out there selling. You're selling a service, you don't have something in your hands. At least if you've got this guide to show that sort of like the expertise that you've got when it comes to imports. This guide definitely download. How many of you have downloaded the DHL shipping guide? It takes you through what a pro forma is, what a commercial invoice is. It's going to help you on the exports, and it's also going to help you on the imports. It will help you activate a customer, because it tells that it takes a customer exactly through. It's the A to Z of shipping and what a customer needs to know. And it's what the DHL salespeople use in front of a customer. So you're doing yourself detriment if you're not using all the tools that are out there. And then when we're speaking to the customer, when you're speaking about imports, you may well find that there might be a different decision maker. Or maybe it might just be the one decision maker, but maybe you're not asking the right questions. So the decision makers, when we look at imports, is going to be, you need to speak to the research and design department. Who looks after that? You need to be speaking to the marketing department. The marketing department, 9 times out of 10, and this is not to put any of our marketing personnel that sort of like work with InXpress down or anything like that, but they don't like shipping. Shipping's a dirty word for them. So, a lot of the times they'll be like, oh, if the supplier says they're sending it and I don't have to worry about it, I'm not going to worry about it. Yeah, if I could save some money for the company, do I really care? So you have to get in front of the guys that look after marketing and be able to promote it to them. You have to get in front of the guys that are managing the sourcing. Be it your samples, your spare parts, your hot copies. Think about that supply chain. Think about sort of like what a customer brings in, what they do with it, and then what goes out again. Now, hand on heart, sort of like I think obviously retention is key. Dustin spoke to the 3 pillars, as in, you've got to go out there, you've got to find your new customers, you've got to activate them, and then obviously I think the last stool of the chair was, or the pillar was that retention. You have to think to yourself, do you truly, with the customers that you've got on board, do you know how they make their money? And if there's any customer that you can think of right now, and you don't know how they make money, you're not really doing retention. Because that customer will only tell you what they think you can do. So a lot of the times what I find, you know, and I go back to this story, I had a DHL salesperson, and he was a national account manager, and he looked after Kodak, big customer. And I said to him, I said, you know, 9 times out of 10, customers, when the weight goes over 40 pounds, they hand it over to a freight forwarder. And he went, yeah, right, that can't be true. And I'm like, it's true. I said, do me a favor, go back and ask Kodak. Just do a little bit of program. He wouldn't believe me, but, you know, true to form, he went back and he did ask Kodak. And Kodak was turning. I mean, Kodak is an intelligent company. They sort of like know about their logistics. But for them, over 40 pounds was heavyweight. And DHL doesn't do heavyweight. Do you think DHL thinks 40 pounds is heavyweight? So you can never assume, you can never sort of like, we don't know how our customers are thinking. A lot of people or a lot of customers will see DHL as a document provider, that we don't move parcels around. A lot of customers will think, yeah, it's just one import. They're not going to care about one import a month. Do you care about one import a month if it's sort of like it's the same revenue as 7 exports? Yeah. So you can't go in with the mindset that your customer is going to tell you everything, because your customer might only tell you what they believe you can help with. So if you go in with the mindset, I'm going to find out how this customer makes their money. I'm going to find out what makes them successful. Then you're going to find all of these other elements. And, you know, I mean, obviously, what I love is you selling DHL. But, you know, if there's other elements that you can also sell in that ties that customer into you so that they're never going to go anywhere, you know, that's where sort of like this supply chain comes in. So make sure you get those imports. The competition that we're going to be doing, it's, I'm going to have you guys come down the top franchisees, and so like it'll be the top 3 franchisees that grow the most in imports in 2017. And I'll probably cut it off maybe sort of like with November. And then I'm going to invite those top 3 franchisees to come down to Fort Lauderdale, have a couple of nights at a beach resort, and then sit down, have dinner with our CEO and with Chet, so that you get more of that sort of like that DHL love, that warmth, and obviously you can probe their brains because they are very intelligent, believe me, and I'm sure they'll help you. So that's what the competition is going to be. We will roll out some more details via Paul to see sort of like how it will be measured. I want you guys to be successful. I know that the imports can bring you a hell of a lot of money. The dollar is strong right now. Obviously, I don't want you to take your focus away from your exports, but I want to make sure that you're growing your imports. We'll do it to the end of November. We'll see how you do. Obviously, in the UK and Canada and Australia, I can't do anything for you guys. But I'm sure if you go back and you speak to your colleagues, they might be able to figure something out for you guys. But that's what we're going to do on imports. Obviously, so like I know that we have our normal competitions, but I really want to drive your imports. Who wants to come down to Fort Lauderdale and have a nice beach vacation? Good. I was going to say, you'd all gone a little bit quiet on me. I was getting a little bit concerned. Sign up for the blogs. Make sure that you're signed up for the DHL alerts so that you get all of the information and then you can use it. The other thing that, you know, we have given you, and I mean, I know that sort of like, I'm sure InXpress is going to be rolling this out to you. You've got all of the email templates that are on the reseller website. So, you know, they've got facts about different trade lanes. You've got all of the presentations. You've got all of the sales slides on the DHL website. So if you want to improve your knowledge on what's the network look like in China, what's the network look like in Australia, we've given you all of those slides so that you can download them, manipulate them, do whatever you want, maybe just use it for your own knowledge. but you do have all of that information. All of the trade lane brochures we provided to you. I keep using the royal we. JSID has provided them to you. On there is also a page where we issue more alerts. I'm going to look to sort of like see how many more alerts we can get out to you in regards keeping you up to date with all of the information. So you should have all of the tools at your disposal. We just need to make sure that sort of like you find the time to use them. So even if you sort of like, maybe you spend 10 minutes a day just going on there and making sure you're aware of what's on the website, what's the new up-to-date things that we're putting on there. Because even though I will advise you via WebExes, you know, sometimes not all of you are going to be able to get on those WebExes. So you need to do a little bit of your own homework as well. Jason, if you'd like to come up here and bring your chair, put your hands up. I don't mind any types of questions. Please hit me with them, be it via the presentation this morning or whatever.
What other countries have the master client file?
All countries have a client master file.
Everyone?
So every single country is using the client master file. What the difficulty you'll have is trying to update client master files in other countries. Obviously, you can update them here quite simply. I'm not quite sure if that's something that sort of like we'll go on to do with clearance on demand, as in expand it. So if you have client master files you want to update in other countries, but even if you go through to the relevant country and say, okay, these are the things that need to be stored on the client master file to do clearance in that particular country, then we can get those details put on there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a question here from Chris.
One of the best tools I think DHL came out with was the email ship. Is that going to continue, and is that going to span to all the countries?
Yeah, email ship is out there, and as far as I know, it should be expanded to all countries now. We have on that slide that I put up, which was the e-commerce way forward. You know, that was one of the tools that we brought on from the e-commerce. So yeah, it should be. If it's not already out to all countries, it will be out shortly. Does everyone know what email ship is? Okay.
Yeah, my question relates to fraud and the ongoing process. Recently, probably 2 weeks ago, I had a customer that had 2 fraud shipments. We did the affidavit. They got a new account number, did all of that, but we were told it's a 60-day process. I don't know if you know much about that, and just maybe things we should be aware of with fraud. I mean, how quickly do we have to report it? I mean, problem is the customer didn't really want their number to be reset, but we had to do it. You know, any thoughts on that moving forward with fraud?
With the fraud, I mean, we've still got a little bit of backlog. The SLA that they're working to right now is 45 days, as in, you know, from the time that the customer files their fraud affidavit, we should have it done and dusted within 45 days.
You know, the fraud, thank you. The fraud team, I think, this year has done an excellent job with trying to create proactive ways to prevent fraud. I think many of you have already received emails from the support team in Utah, from myself, where the fraud team has actually stopped shipments, right? What I do is I get an alert from the fraud team saying, this shipment looks like it could be fraudulent. Please contact the customer to confirm whether they want it to be delivered or whether they want it to be stopped. And I think the support team can kind of back me up on this. It's been excellent. It's been great. I think a lot of people, if you guys can give me your feedback, that fraud has kind of decreased because of this. Now, with this, the issue was that you have to really contact the customer as soon as you get this email, because they're only going to hold the shipment for 72 hours. After 72 hours, if they don't hear from you, they're going to release the shipment. And in anything, if it's considered fraud, then obviously you have to go through the fraud process. So I really like the proactive approach that fraud is doing, and I'm glad you mentioned that. So as soon as you get an email from the support team, you know, and it's from me, forwarded from me, please, we urge you within 72 hours to get with the customer and figure out whether it's fraud or not, because after that, they're going to go ahead and release the shipment because they can't hold it forever. So.
Thanks, Jason.
When will DHL start shipping to Cuba?
We're still waiting to get the clearance on that. I mean, obviously we do ship to Cuba right now. but it will be only documents, and you know, they need to be OFAC approved. But as soon as we get the go-ahead, then we're going to be able to go forward and launch that across the United States. I know that there's a huge marketplace down in Miami for it.
So currently, when you say that they do ship documents, it's still not allowed, the customer cannot use their DHL account number, they have to go to the station and ship it there?
No,
I understand.
if what you would have to do is you'd come through to us. When I say come through to us, we just need to get them OFAC approved.
Okay.
There is a sort of like a surcharge for shipping to OFAC countries, and Cuba is still down as an OFAC country. But yeah, I mean, we can send the documents. Usually what we find is it's price prohibitive for the customer with this surcharge. As soon as you know, we get more updates from the government, then we're ready to rock and roll because we already have the infrastructure over there. So you know, DHL will have a competitive advantage because you know we're already sort of like sending mass loads of shipments from other countries in there, and we've got the infrastructure to support it.
Question for our larger DHL customers who already have InXpress swag. Wanted to see if you ever are open to being able to allow us to get access to some DHL swag for marketing.
So you want to have some DHL swag to give to your customers?
DHL customers, yeah, our larger DHL customers who already have the InXpress swag, would love to be able to also give them some DHL.
There was a process that we put in place which allows you to purchase the swag at cost, as in, you know, sort of like it's not as though DHL's making any money from it. And yeah, we can certainly do that. What we were trying to work with InXpress is if we can, you know, send the orders in, you know, it might be every 3 months or whatever, so we can send a mass order in. But if you reach out to the headquarters, say what your order is, and then we'll work it through JCID on how it goes. Unfortunately, the way it will have to work is you need to give us obviously a check. We then have to work with the bureaucracy and the sort of like different accounting things to be able to put that through, because we pay it under my cost center. I don't really have any money under my cost center. So that's why we sort of like need the money so that we can send it through. But yeah, we don't have a problem purchasing stuff for you. Is there anyone else that wants to do that? Buy DHL swag?
I think the best way to do that would be to give it the support team and give us a bulk order. You know, what we want to kind of shy away from is everybody kind of doing it one at a time. So I saw about 5 hands go up. So if you have one big bulk order, you know, give it the support team, give me the bulk order, and it'll be a lot simpler for myself. That'd be it.
On the presentation earlier on customs clearance, on a POA, how long can you put out with that customer? Can you do it for a year, 2 years on a power of attorney?
Yeah, I mean, there's different times that you can put on. I mean, you could just have a power of attorney even just for one shipment, if you wanted, and the customer then sort of like says, okay, we're going to use DHL's bond after that. So yeah, there's flexibility around that. I mean, the power of attorneys do run out. So usually what we do is if we see a power of attorney running out, then we'll actually proactively get in touch with you to say, okay, we see that these power of attorneys are running out. What do you want us to do? I know I've got a question there at the back, but...
Caroline, quick question on services. You mentioned break bulk at the beginning of the presentation. Estimated time of arrival on a service like that?
You know, I only heard a whisper of it last week.
Okay.
So
no time soon.
I would just say sort of like get your pipeline together. It's coming. You can't actively go after it yet, but it is coming.
Second service question. FedEx has a service that I'm sure you're familiar with called FedEx Great Rates, which gives an access to a very discounted rate based on capacity to different lanes. DHL has a similar service called DHL Spot Rate. Is there an availability for InXpress to resell that service?
Do you want to take that one, Paul? Because I think we've given some information to InXpress about it, but it's...
Yeah, we've been trialing that on a small basis, so we do have it. So we're happy to get with you if you'd like to be part of the trial.
Well, thank you, Paul.
And we can do that for you.
Yeah, whoever wants to be part of that trial, happy to have you.
I want to be part of that trial. I have a question about recycled numbers. Can you talk about why you're doing it and how you decide when to recycle an old account number?
Kathy, I'd have to get you more details on that. I mean, we do recycle account numbers. If there's an account number that has not been used for 2 years, we then send it to purge. So if an account number gets recycled, it should have already gone through the purge process, as in, it's not been used, and then that account number is closed. I'm not quite sure as in how many years after the 2 years, then they start recycling those account numbers. The more the problem that we have is on the import account numbers. I'm finding that those get recycled more. So one of the things that I would ask your help with, and that, this is to all of you, is a lot of the times when you open up a customer, you'll open up an export account number and open up an import account number. I'm getting a lot of stress at the moment, and a lot of people screaming at me because you should only open up an import account number if you know the customers have got a need to import. We shouldn't just be opening up import account numbers as a matter of fact when we do the exports. I mean, Jason, do you know how many years it is before they recycle it?
It's supposed to be 2 years.
But that's the purge ones. That's different from recycle.
I'll say this. I don't think there's an exact year because I actually asked the CFSC team in Houston and no one could actually give me an exact number. But I do know this, that once it gets on the purge list, and actually, it's funny you mentioned that the purge list will be coming out within the next week. So you're going to get a list of customers that belong to you that are going to be completely purged out of the system, and then you can all basically go ahead and assume that those customers' account numbers will be recycled. That makes sense.
Just before we go, I can take 2 more questions, but just thinking of something. Guys, you have sort of like a lot of your customers may well have an account numbers, and maybe you get duty bills against those account numbers which you aren't responsible for. Do you see those duty bills that go to your customers that maybe they're not shipping, they're not exporting on? Yeah? I would use that as a source of leads, because at the end of the day, if a customer is paying duty bills to DHL, that tells me that there could possibly be a need for them to do Import Express. So just linking it into this, if you're seeing customers that are paying duty bills, but you're not getting any money from them or any revenue from them, I would use that as a source of leads. Okay, I'm just thinking that could be a good quick one to hone in with this Import Express. More questions?
I have a question.
Thanks,
The
Mark.
pilot strike, did you guys renegotiate the contract with them?
Sorry, say that if you don't mind.
The pilot strike, did you guys renegotiate the contract with them or figure everything out with that?
With the pilots, who was renegotiating the contract would have been the employees of the pilots, because we use them as a subcontractor. My understanding is that yes, everything has been figured out. We've been in big talks with them to say, okay, you can't let it get to that stage. We feel very strongly about respecting your employees, and we want our subcontractors to do that as well. So my understanding is we don't have anything to worry about there. They've sorted it all out, and we are good to go. And the strike that they called, it was completely illegal. The judge just sort of threw it out of court and said either you get back to work or they've got the right to sack you. And I don't mean us sack them, but whoever their employees sack them, in that case ABX.
All right, I just got the last question here.
Thank you for that, Mark.
In 2017, at the beginning, Czechoslovakia and Poland became Zone E from previously Zone D. Rates essentially doubled, and they're grouping them in with Iraq and Afghanistan, war-torn countries. Why is that, and is there any relief we can get on those rates?
That was a global decision that was made.
Thank you.
I'll get you some more information on that and feed it via Paul. My understanding is there's not any relief we can get on those rates. Those rates are competitive in the marketplace. And a lot of the times when we change zones, it's to match what the competition is doing, to make sure that we're more closely aligned with what they're charging. But do you mind noting that down and writing that down for me so that I can take it away with me and get you some more information on that? I think so. Like that was all the questions that I could take because I'm under strict orders. But I will be around. I'm not going anywhere. My flight is a red eye tonight. So you know, if you have any questions, please ask me. JCID is also going to be around. I know that you're going to have a very busy afternoon. From our perspective, I would like to say a big thank you. Again, you are very valued. I know that Chet is absolutely gutted that he's not here. And again, I will basically put that down to him being a man and not taking medicine. But hey ho, he's going to have grief for an entire year from me on this now, so it's going to be quite enjoyable for me. But thank you. As always, it's a pleasure to been here with you guys from the start, and I'm just overwhelmed by what you've done and what I know you're going to go and continue to do. I can't wait to see the success that you go forward with. So go out there, rock and roll it, and remember, you don't get anywhere without action. You've got to put that one step in front of each other, and you've got to go for your goals. And with that action, with that grit, you'll get there, and success will come. So thank you very much.